What's up, dudes? I just got off work and I look a little bit unhinged, but I kind of want to get this video out for reasons that will become clear soon. A couple of months ago, I did a video about the Artisan 40mm f2 lens on the Lumix S9. It seemed to be the best small prime you could get for an L-mount camera, especially for the money. Since that video, a company called SG Image has released their take on a small L-mount prime, the SG Image 35 f2.2. Normally this is where I would show you the lens, but I'm actually using it to film this, so here, have some B-roll. I originally planned to just do a video about this lens as well, just like I did with the TT Artisan, but every time I mentioned anything about it anywhere on the internet, the number one most frequent question I got was, is it better than the TT Artisan 40? So I figured I would cut right to the chase and just make a comparison video. And then I started trying to take some comparison photos, and I realized how much I hate it. Taking comparison photos, that is, not this lens. Even though I have two cameras with the same mount and the same sensor, trying to take two identical photos with two different cameras is very boring. It pretty much limits you to landscapes and other still life and stuff like that, and there are other places on the internet to look at pictures of brick walls. So I decided to pivot yet again and just take a bunch of pictures with the SG Image lens and then come in with some comparisons at the end. You're probably already familiar with the SG Image lens if you clicked on the video, but let's cover some basic specs. This is a 35mm autofocus prime with a maximum aperture of f2.2. It's a very compact lens, which is why a lot of people were very excited about it coming out for L-mount because it's kind of a natural fit for the Lumix S9. It has effectively no physical features other than a USB-C port for updates and a focus ring. No aperture ring or switches or buttons or anything. I carried this lens mounted on my S9 for about a month and just used it like I normally would. Take a look at some pics from the SG Image 35 and I'll come back and ramble more.
Booked our flights. Let's go see a show in Mexico, yeah. Laugh and dance all night. We should fly right over the sea. Take my hand to another land, girl, just you and me. Breakfast here and dinner there, we flow with the breeze. We can do this anywhere, name a place you wanna see, yeah. Few days in Tokyo, weekend in Spain. Out there in Ibiza, chilling all day with your feet up. Don't matter where we go, always stays the same. I got you and you got me, girl.
So yeah, overall, pretty solid little lens. First off, I do love the size of this lens. It balances really naturally on the S9. It feels like it was literally made for it. So that's a big plus right off the bat. The minimum focal distance is actually pretty good. I was honestly surprised at how close I could get to stuff. I mean, it's definitely not a macro lens or anything, but you can get decently close to your subject. It's also decently sharp. Not like the sharpest lens I've ever used or anything, but it's definitely sharp enough, particularly at the center. This lens seems to be really well suited to dad cam or mom cam duty, as it makes the S9 very small and manageable, and I used it the most while doing stuff with my daughter. In short, this is pretty much exactly what you expect for a walk-around prime. Now to the question that everyone asks. How does the SG Image 35 compare to the TT Artisan 40? I totally understand the desire to compare the two. I bought them both to fulfill the same role, and they're almost the exact same focal length, very similar in physical size, nearly identical in maximum aperture, and they're priced within $10 of one another, at least at the time I'm making this video. We'll start with some physical differences. The TT Artisan lens is metal, while the SG Image lens is plastic. I forgot to weigh them, so my script just says insert weight difference here. So I'll put that up on the screen. I'm very good at this. So yeah, insert weight difference here. The TT Artisan has an aperture ring, while the SG image lens does not. The TT Artisan lens is longer but narrower, and the SG image lens is shorter but kind of more plump, like larger diameter. The SG image lens is very tight on the lens mount, like right on the edge of being kind of concerning. I pre-ordered as soon as pre-orders were up, and mine is likely a very early example, so that might not be the case if you order one today, but it definitely is with mine. Not a huge deal, just kind of felt like I should mention it. They have different style lens hoods. The TT Artisan lens is a more standard lens hood that accepts a standard lens cap, and the SG image lens is one of the square hoods that has a push-on, friction fit kind of lens cap that comes with it. The SG image lens hood would make it basically impossible to use a variable ND filter or anything you need to touch on the front of the camera. So consider that if you want to have both a lens hood and a variable ND filter. Also on the topic of lens hoods, I'm not entirely clear whether the SG image lens includes it or not. It did when I ordered, but that might have been like an early bird special or something, and they forgot to include it. To their credit, they sent me one for free when I pointed out the oversight. Another thing that I do want to point out is that the SG image lens has much louder focus motors than the TT Artisan. This isn't really an issue for me, as I plan to use it for mostly photography anyway, and I would pretty much never be using the onboard mics, even if I were shooting video, but if you're planning to do that, this could be a deal breaker. So for the comparison shots, I do not have two S9s, but I do have the next best thing, an S9 and, an S5.2. I went into the menu on the S5.2 and put it in electronic shutter mode, which makes it functionally identical to the S9. The two cameras share the same sensor, same processor, same software, everything. Like I said earlier, it's very boring to take pictures of stuff that doesn't change at all, so you can get the exact same picture out of both lenses, but here they are.
Booked our flights. Let's go see a show in Mexico, yeah. Laughing.
Okay. To be totally honest, I don't really think there's an appreciable difference in image quality between the two lenses, which honestly isn't very surprising. They're two small primes with a similar focal length at the same price point. It would actually be more surprising if one was drastically better or worse than the other. I should also mention that both of these lenses have had occasional focus hiccups for me. The TT Artisan lens has a couple of times just not focused, like just red box for no reason when I'm focusing on something a few feet away and not in a low light or a busy scene, or, just doesn't do it. And to be fair to TT Artisan, I have not experienced this since the latest firmware update, I believe the one that came out in December that said it addressed focus issues. The SG image lens will occasionally start hunting for focus like crazy, focusing rapidly in and out, like, and like it's unable to actually lock focus. I tried to get it on video using my DJI Mic Nano, but I can't reliably replicate it, which goes towards my second point, that while I have undeniably seen it a few times, it's been pretty damn rare. Rare enough that I can totally excuse it on an otherwise pretty good $200 lens, particularly the TT Artisan that seems to have fixed it with a software update. As I mentioned, I don't think there's much difference in image quality between these two lenses, but there are some differences in general. I think those differences are actually what you should base your decision on between these two lenses. If you want the absolute smallest, reasonably fast lens, then get the SG image. It's lighter and shorter and easier to carry. I mean, it's not a big difference, but at this point we're kind of splitting hairs anyway, and it is the smaller of the two. If you want a manual aperture ring, get the TT Artisan. It has one, and the SG image lens does not, so that's pretty straightforward. If you really want a 28mm, get the SG image lens. It's not a 28mm, but it's at least closer to 28 than the TT Artisan 40. Conversely, if you really want a 50mm, get the TT Artisan lens for the exact same reason. Neither of them will be exactly what you want, but there is a small but noticeable difference in focal length, so you should get the one that's at least closer to the focal length you actually want, even if it's not exactly what you want. As for me, I think I slightly prefer the TT Artisan lens. I like 40mm better than 35. The size difference is negligible. I like having an aperture ring, and the focus motors are quieter. If I had to pick one of the two right now, it would probably be the TT Artisan lens. But to be totally honest, if the SG image lens were available faster or on sale a few dollars off or something like that, that might be enough to convince me to pick up that lens instead. That's how close they are. Of course, all of this might be very different in a week or so. Panasonic announced their 40mm f2 lens, showing ship dates in early June, I believe the 10th. And yes, I have already pre-ordered one, and as soon as I get my hands on that lens, I'll compare it to both of these. I expect that the Panasonic lens will be better in basically every way, which isn't a super bold prediction considering it cost almost 3 times as much as the other two. So the question is going to be, is it 3 times better? If you're not interested in spending $400 on a small prime for your S9, or if you're going on a trip before the Panasonic lens ships and would like to have a small prime, both of these are honestly pretty solid. No, they aren't perfect, but they also aren't priced like they're perfect either. They're cheap, small primes that really make the S9 feel like a well-balanced camera and that punch well above their price point in terms of image and build quality. I don't think you're going to be disappointed in either one as long as your expectations are in line with the economic reality of these lenses. That's about it for this time. I'll put up all the images in this video in a post on my website at michaelsigler.com. And if you're interested in my take on the Lumix 40mm f2, hit the subscribe button. See you next time.